Previously on the Trogly's Guitar Show.
Whew. Great, I finally talked about a robot guitar. Maybe people will leave me alone about that monstrosity Firebird X. Oh man, I feel sorry for anybody who owns one of those. It would just be...
Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Happy Halloween. October 31st. I knew I would have to review the Firebird X one day, even if it kills me. Firebird X. This is the guitar that just completely ruined Henry Jeskowicz's whole reputation of being Gibson's CEO. Now, they started flaunting these around 2010, but they actually came up for sale around 2011 till 2012. A lot of these sat around in stores for a few years after that, so you can find stories of people buying these new old stock up until a few years ago. But does this guitar deserve all the hate it gets? Is this the most ugly, awful guitar that's just terrible? Let's dive into this guitar, because believe it or not, I'm going out on public record here, I like the Firebird X. The Firebird X is what I consider a super robot guitar. Now, I kind of invented the term super robot as a way to distinguish between the ones that can just tune themselves, yeah, big deal, and the ones that can tune themselves and have just a million built-on effects. This is basically the most infamous super robot. These instruments have a really steep learning curve to them. So let's make some plain English sense out of this guitar. First off, you have 3 mini humbucker style pickups. If you don't like mini humbuckers or Firebird pickups, don't worry, it's mainly just a visual thing, because this guitar will basically do any sound you can think of with the help of all these other switches. Your bridge is not a normal one, it's actually a piezo bridge, so that gives you acoustic tones. And the tailpiece, it's standard, looks funny, but it's because of the tuning system. Now you're gonna notice that these knobs are different colors. Did somebody switch the other black one or other chrome one? No, this is how it comes stock. Gibson color-coded all these, that way the instruction manual would actually make sense. Great idea. So this silver one is your volume pot. It's right there, it's good for volume swells if you need to do something like that. And then you have what they consider the digital veritone switch. This is essentially your tone pot. It functions just like it, but depending on what setting, sometimes it'll do some other things as well. And then you have your big guy right here. This is what Gibson considers the gear shift knob. This is the biggest thing. If you ever get one of these and sit down with it, plug it in and go, it doesn't work. Okay, first you gotta turn the guitar on. In order to turn the Firebird X on, you simply pull up on this knob, kind of like one of those push pulls, and then you have to wait 5 seconds. And then you see it start to light up here, which it seems to be going crazy on the camera, but it's not actually doing that in person. So I think that has to do with the frame rate. But this is the whole central control of this entire instrument. At this point, with all these other switches not even taken into effect, this gives you 11 distinct different tones. That ranges from acoustic instruments to humbuckers to mini humbuckers. I mean, just take a look at this chart and it'll show you what it can do. And you can utilize this blade pickup selector to also get different sounds within each subcategory. So some simple math, you have a built-in 55 effects stock from the factory. Now you can modify these if you plug this thing into the Firebird X program on the computer, and then you can get up to 2,000 different sounds, but I'm not gonna go that far into the Firebird X. So once you've toyed around with this, you might think, well, you should probably tune your guitar first. In order to do that, you're going to need your gray toggle switch. They're actually labeled. This one is PU Prog, Piezo, as well as tuning. So you're going to want to flip this gray one all the way down for tuning. At this point, this will start to change and you'll have different labelings. If you turn it all the way counterclockwise, that is standard tuning. All you have to do is strum and it will magically tune itself. And then once it's done tuning, it'll automatically turn your guitar back on. That is a really handy feature. I hate like the eTune system because sometimes it doesn't work very well, but this Super Robot system, it works great. Here's a little hint if it doesn't work out too well. Sometimes depending on which alternate tuning you choose, because again, you have 11 different options. If you find it's not tuning a few strings correctly, like you just keep hammering it and it's not moving at all, just fret a note. I mean, it really doesn't matter where on the fretboard, but something like the first or second fret, because then it senses, oh, that string is so sharp, I need to loosen it. And then I find when you strum it open again, it'll get it like right away the next time. But now that you've got it tuned and you understand the main functions that you can do tonality-wise, here's what these other switches also do. They add effects to your sound. This one here, it's all about having some reverb. So all the way down is your reverb selection, then you have echo and modulation all the way up. Now these aren't just three-way selector switches, they're actually kind of like a tone pot. You can turn them from 0 to 10, just like if you were trying to take the knob off or something. So if you're playing around, you've kind of got a dry sound, you want to wetten it up a little bit. The instruction manual says you need to press the digital veritone twice, and then that allows you to modify it and it will save it. But I was really impressed with some of the reverb you can get on this thing. The next one down here, your red switch, is all about distortion. So you've got compression up, distortion in the middle, and then EQ. And the thing that the red and the blue toggle pot have in common is there's kind of sliders on the side of the guitar here that allows you to modify them even further. You can see what those categories are right there. You can definitely dial in some interesting sounds. I bought this instrument about 2 months ago. I was too scared to even touch this thing because I couldn't figure out how to get it to work. Now, unfortunately, this guitar, it's broken. It doesn't actually work. I bought another robot guitar that has pretty much the exact same layout. That's why I can say why these actually do sound good. We'll review that one in a separate video. It is the LPX. But here's what's wrong with this one. For some reason, this volume pot is stuck on like 0.5. The volume is so very minimal out of this thing. There's got to be something wrong with this volume pot because it is the only thing that doesn't do anything. So this playing demo, yeah, it's not the best. In order to actually get any sound of it, I just plug it directly into my audio interface. I crank everything up. So you're going to get some white noise. That's not the guitar. That's just because the settings are so high. But that is the only way I can show that, you know, all these functions do work. There's just something wrong with this volume pot.
And here's the guts of a Firebird X. You've got your volume pot here, which I believe is faulty somehow. Your digital veritone switch again, along with your gear shift. Output jack is located on the side, so it kind of creates a cluster of a bunch of wires right there. This one reads echo, actually another cavity right here, where all the robot stuff from the bridge and tailpiece come together. And then again, you have your chambering going up the body here to reveal the next toggle pot as well as the slider switches.
But something a lot of videos don't go in depth about is why the Firebird X is awesome. This is one of the nicest playing Gibsons I've had. It is designed very well. Now sure, it's kind of an ugly, fat, non-reversed Firebird that's just misshapen, but there's some cool features here. This is a swamp ash body. When has Gibson ever used swamp ash ever? Well, besides a few limited editions, it's not a standard, so it's kind of an interesting choice for this. They claim it's to make a lightweight guitar, which this is. It's about 7.5 pounds. It's essentially a chambered guitar with all the electronics. But the next thing that's interesting here is Henry designed this thing with a maple neck. Now, maple necks, that's nothing new for Gibson. Just about every single Les Paul from 1976 through 82 had maple necks, but this is kind of a coming back for Gibson. And look at this sweet little treat. They have a volute on the back of the headstock. Gibson used these from about 1969 to 1982, and prior to that, it was only for high-end arch tops. These are designed to help protect your headstock should it fall. And the way that the neck meets the body is magnificent. It's not a big clunky heel. They've actually shaved it down some, as you can see here. It's kind of like the access heel joint, just not quite as extreme. It's subtle, but it looks futuristic and it works. You can easily reach all the frets. So it's the attention to playability right here that was really impressive to me. But the next thing that really just blew my mind here is the fretboard. It's flamed. And this isn't just some spectacular example. That is the stock specs for a Firebird X. It has to be a curly maple fretboard. Something else a lot of people won't talk about is the fretboard. If you've ever played a Fender, sometimes it's really glossy, sticky. This is almost more like a satin finish over the maple fretboard, which is awesome because typically on modern day Gibsons, they don't lacquer the maple boards at all for some dumb reason. And you've got the same thing going on with the back. It's more of a satin finish, but it is a very comfortable guitar to play. So in the end, this is such a fantastic guitar. I was not expecting to like the Firebird X. I can see why Henry was trying to pump this up as best as he could. He got all the big names to try to endorse this, and he was just trying to change the whole guitar industry in general. But it's kind of like me making a video about ukuleles, pouring my heart out, 20 hours of work editing and writing a song, and then it gets minimal views. I feel his pain, but this was just not to the correct audience. Guitarists were very simple people. We just want to plug it in and we want to play. We don't necessarily want onboard effects. We would rather just have a pedal board because, well, it's easier to understand. We can visualize what it's all doing, and that's why the Firebird X kind of failed. But I can tell you, from a player standpoint, if you want to buy this broken one for a good price, just rip all this stuff out of it. I'm sure you could sell these parts for a hefty premium because I'm sure somebody needs to repair theirs. And just restore this to normal electronics. I think you would be very happy with this just as a player. Or fix the volume pot or whatever else might be wrong with it. And these really are enjoyable guitars. I hate to say that I liked a robot, but the Firebird X, it wasn't quite as scary as I thought it was going to be. Now these big clunky things also came with the Firebird X. This is designed to be used as like a volume pedal, and you can also have like wah effects. Unfortunately, these ones are missing the couplers on the back, so I couldn't really figure out how to make these things work with the guitar, but they're supposed to help you modulate your sound even further. And they do it by Bluetooth communication to the guitar, which means these things require batteries, the guitar requires batteries. That's another thing that guitarists hate, are batteries. So if you see a Firebird X at an attractive enough price, I would suggest actually buying one of these things. I had fun with it. I loved the design. I just wish this was the one that was working. So now that we've learned a little bit more about this, let's kind of hear how it sounds. Now that we know how this instrument sounds, let's go ahead and see its condition. Okay, so this thing, it's in pretty clean shape. I think the biggest area of wear is right here. It looks like somebody tried to shoot it. It's like a little BB gun pellet. Ptink! You've got this blue swirl finish, and I don't know why they went for a silkscreen Gibson logo. They should have totally did the mother of pearl. You've got a black nut, once again paired with a flamed maple fretboard. Now, the prototype, or what I'm assuming is the prototype Firebird X, it actually had trapezoid inlays and what looks to me like a hickory fretboard. But the dot inlays, very interesting choice. I feel they should have went with something else maybe. And the X logo, it's cool, but I feel like it should be at like the 7th or maybe the 9th fret. That way it's kind of more so in the middle of the fretboard. I know technically the 12th fret is the middle, but it just seems a little bit too far down the neck. But realistically, they probably put it at the 5th because it could be larger there. But honestly, I don't look at the fret markers, I just look at the beautiful flame. I will say this thing is a pain in the butt to keep clean. I had this all nice and polished, and just by my handling it for this video, you can see you've got all these fingerprints on the pickups, but it's basically all chromed out. You've got the chrome pickup covers, you've got the chrome pickup rings. Everything is nice and shiny on this. Same thing with the headstock, you have the blue swirl. The official title for this is Bluevolution. I don't know who approved that name. The red one's even worse, Redolution. But yeah, they were just trying to be fun, I guess. Once again, all the effects, the self-tuning, it all works. There's just something botched about the volume to this. Now, this could be a simple fix. It really could. I do not know a lot about these. All the information I got was simply by reading the instruction manual that Gibson has on their website. I have a link to it in my article on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. Because it talks about how you can modify what the volume control can do once it's synced up to those pedals or your computer. So I'm wondering if this thing is like stuck at a almost no volume because of a preset that was programmed. So if it is that, you're getting a fantastic deal on this guitar, but I can't say for one way or the other. Back of the instrument, all the serial numbers are handwritten. FBX for Firebird X. This is number 459, so I would assume this is one of the later made ones. Got a super crazy tuning system here. I like this type of robot tuner a lot better than eTune, but I think it's one of those things, if I actually sat down with an eTune and learned what all these buttons were, I would probably like it. If they could have just simplified the eTunes and just have it, one button means tune it to this, I think guitarists would have liked them better. Again, you've got a sweet volute, which is just an awesome throwback and makes it feel high-end, and you've got kind of that 60s neck profile. It's not super shredder thin, it's got a little bit of roundedness to it, but overall it's just a very comfortable neck profile and with that cutaway heel. The thing I like best about the Swamp Ash body is you can actually see the wood grain on the back. That is just beautiful. It reminds me of that St. Patrick's Day SG where they kind of painted that design on. But here's something you're going to notice. You see how the lacquer isn't like even? It looks like it's sunk down in. You can notice this on just about any Firebird X demo video. I'm guessing it has to do with something with Swamp Ash. It absorbs the finish or something. I haven't actually dealt with ash bodies that much, so that could be true, it could be false, who knows. But you have a big control plate back here. Once again, reminds me of the Artist series from the late 70s. And condition-wise, you've got some light scratches on the back from buckles, but a lot of this is just dust. For some reason, this guitar just attracts all the dust. It's like a vacuum cleaner. I'll take a quick look around the sides here. It's actually in pretty darn good shape. You've got your output jack on the edge here, and your strap button, and you've got that comfort carve down here. And that's the other thing I didn't really talk about playability wise, is for some reason this big oversized horn, it kind of reminds me of the Gibson M3. There's something about the way it just hits against your chest. It feels right. It like anchors the guitar in an interesting way. Now we'll take a look under Blacklight. You can see everything's glowing the way you would expect to see. It's not too old of a guitar, so it's not going to have a super glow, but we do get to see the ghostly green vibe here. Perfect for October 31st. Back of the headstock's good. This is kind of what shows you that it's a different finish from what's on the body. It's less glossy, which is great for playing. And then once again, the body, it's got that glossiness. So it definitely passes the Blacklight test. And if you can figure out how to make it work, I'm sure it would be a fantastic instrument.
Spooky, scary skeleton. Spooky, spooky, spooky.
The Firebird X has its own specially designed case. It's kind of like a gig bag, but super heavily padded. So you've got a handle up here, you've got a handle there. It also has optional straps that you could put on it to put on your back. But you've got a heavy-duty zipper that opens and closes it. And then the inside is this kind of molded hard shell case. Gibson claims you can drop this from a 6-story building and your guitar will be just fine, and you could use this thing for checked baggage. I wouldn't want to do that test. I mean, it's really nice. I mean, it's really secure, but I don't know if I would trust it that much. But I would say this is on par, or maybe even better than a regular hard shell case. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this Gibson Firebird X, feel free to check out the Reverb listing. A link is in the description. And don't forget to check out the TroglysGuitarShow.com website. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you on the next episode. Take care.